This whole dinner goes to pot. And if you're a meat lover, this is one of those recipes you've got to be able to do. Wait until you try our orange spiced pot roast. It is so tender and juicy and, of course, delicious. I want to start with a huge virtual hug to my cousin Linda for this one. We were chatting about recipes and she was like, when are you going to post your mother's pot roast? And I'm like, what pot roast? She says, your mother's orange spiced pot roast. Sure enough, I pulled out my mother's recipe box and there is the recipe. Although I swear I have never had it before. Having now made it, I have to say it is really stellar and we know you're going to enjoy it. The cut of beef for this recipe is a chuck roast. It needs to be a cut of beef that has a little bit of marbling in it. We're using a 4 to 5 pound chuck roast and I'd like you to bring it to room temperature before you begin. Something else we're going to do is do a little spice combo. So into a small bowl, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon ground nutmeg plus 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground cloves, and then grab your pepper mill, a couple of twists of black pepper, stir the spice and salt mix together, and then place it close to stove top. Next thing we're gonna do is 3 oranges. This is, after all, an orange spiced pot roast, surprising. We're gonna take our first orange and zest it, reserve that zest to the side. Then we're gonna peel 2 oranges. Make sure you take off the piths. As you pull apart the orange, I'm then gonna chop the segments. You're gonna need 2 cups of chopped orange segments for the recipe. This pot roast recipe is made on stovetop, so you don't need to turn on your oven, but we do suggest you use a Dutch oven for the recipe. This works really well and the heat evenly distributes through the pot while the roast cooks. We're gonna head to stovetop, place your Dutch oven onto your large burner, turn it to a medium-high setting. And then I want you to think about the last time you made bacon and hopefully you saved some bacon drippings because we're gonna add 2 tablespoons into that pot. When it melts and starts to shimmer, we're gonna start to brown our roast. Place the meat into the pot, let it sit and sizzle for a little bit, grab a meat fork and then turn it, and you continue browning the roast in this method. Once it's beautifully browned, we're gonna add 1 diced onion. You can use a Vidalia, a yellow, or a Spanish onion for the recipe. I'm also gonna add 2 cloves of garlic, finely minced, and just add the onion and garlic around the roast. Place the lid on it, turn your heat down to a low simmer setting, and let the roast cook for 20 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, we're gonna lift the lid off, look down, see that the onions and garlic are softened. Now we're gonna continue and build a bit more flavor. We're gonna add 8 ounces of tomato sauce. Plop in those orange sections all the way around the roast. Sprinkle in 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Let's also add that orange zest. Last thing we're gonna do is grab our spice and salt blend and just sprinkle the top of the roast with that blend. We're gonna place our lid on and we're gonna let our pot roast slowly roast on simmer for 2 to 2.5 hours. One of the nice things about this recipe is the way your home is gonna fill with wonderful aromas. When the roast is done, you can lift the lid and you'll see a very beautiful finish on this braised cut of beef. When it's time to serve, I suggest you grab your meat fork, transfer your roast onto a platter. You can cut away the butcher's string. If you need a knife, you can cut into the beef to reveal this very tender beef. I then like to go back into the pot, grab a ladle. You can transfer a little bit of that sauce into a gravy boat, which you can then pour over your main course. Last few things before you present your pot roast, how about a sprinkling of freshly chopped parsley, a couple of orange slices. I love serving this pot roast with 1 or 2 spoonfuls of buttered carrots, our Parmesan mashed potatoes. Then you can add your pot roast onto the plate, grab that gravy boat, a little drizzle over top. One final thing I love serving with this pot roast is our creamy horseradish sauce. It is so perfect with it. Everything about this is pretty perfect. And it is your next must-make recipe, our spiced orange pot roast. A little bit of pot roast and orange and horseradish cream. Tender and juicy and delicious. You'll see when you make it. Until next time, take care.